Hi, my friends. I'm Nicole with Guiding Echoes, the channel that encourages you to discover the wisdom of your soul. And as a psychic medium, I have had the amazing opportunity to speak to several different souls that have crossed on, which means they've passed away, they've lived their life here on earth, they've gone to heaven, and they've shared their stories with me. Not just stories of who they were and what they did when they were on the earthly realm, but also the stories and the experiences that they have in heaven. So I want to share some of those stories with you because it will answer the question that's been burning in your mind and burning in your heart. If you've ever lost someone you loved, once someone we love crosses over, we are filled with so many different questions. Aside from the normal grief that we feel and the questions that come with that, we also wonder, what are they doing on the other side? Are they still watching over me? Can they hear me? Like, what exactly is going on? So we're going to answer that in this video. So the first thing I want you to know is that every person's experience in the afterlife is just as individual and unique as it is here. Heaven is not some place that is see-through and wispy. It is actually a very physical realm. It does have a lighter energy to it. It doesn't feel as heavy and dense as the energy here on earth, but it is still very solid. So the people who are walking around in heaven, they are in physical bodies, solid bodies. It's not like they're looking at each other and seeing right through each other. So I want you to know that the heavenly realm is just as real as this one. The reason that people sometimes associate spirits from that realm as being see-through and translucent is just because of the way they project themselves when they are busting through into our 3D reality to reveal themselves to us. So while spirits may look kind of hazy and discombobulated when they visit us in this realm, that's not how they look in the heavenly realm. They have full solid bodies. So just wanted to assure you of that. Once spirits have gone through the initial phase of going to the light, reuniting with their friends and family, and going through their life review, they are then able to really dive in to their own life experience. So here's what I mean by that. Imagine that you're on an airplane and you are visiting a new destination. Your experience on that plane is going to be specific to you. However, the experience of being on an airplane is actually pretty general, right? There are going to be other people on that airplane with you, and you guys are all going to pull your luggage from the overhead. You're all going to stand in line. You're all going to walk out of the terminal. You all have to go to the baggage claim. You all have to grab your baggage from the baggage claim. You all have to walk outside the airport, find your ride, and from there you all go your separate ways. But for a brief moment in time, you guys are all having very similar experiences. You may be having different thoughts, different feelings, but the experience of being on an airplane, getting off the airplane, getting your stuff from baggage claim, and leaving the airport, that's a very universal, general experience. And that's where the general, universal experience probably ends, right? Because now you guys are all going off, having your own adventures, having your own experiences. And that's how it is when people initially cross over. They leave their body, they are encompassed by the love and gratitude and light of divine spirit, of their angels and guides, and of course their friends and family who've been waiting for them on the other side. They go through their life review, and then from there, it's anyone's game, right? From there, they have their own life experience in heaven. So with that knowledge, I want to share with you some of the amazing stories that I have heard from spirits who are on the other side. And this will give you an idea of what spirits are capable of once they cross over, and also what your loved ones may be experiencing on that other side and what you may experience when you eventually cross over. So the first story that I want to share with you is of a young man by the name of Ryan. When Ryan was alive in this physical realm, he was disabled and he was not able to play sports. He wasn't able to walk for extended periods of time. I don't remember what type of disability he had. He was able to walk, but not for long. He had movement in his arms, but not for long. He would fatigue very, very quickly. So because of this, his actions and his momentum in life were actually very limited. The good news, the interesting news, is that his life expectancy was much higher than what the doctors here on Earth had predicted for him. So he was only supposed to be alive until like his mid-20s. He didn't pass away until his 40s. So he was on a lot of medication. He did feel grounded most of the time, but he also lived with family members and friends who loved him very much and helped him to live a very full life despite the disability that he was dealing with. So once Ryan crossed over, he did all of these wonderful things in his new body, because once you cross over, you do get a new healthy body. And he was so excited about it that the first thing that he started to do was he joined a sports team. So on the other side, if you've ever wondered, do they play sports? Do they play games? The answer to that is yes. One of the things that he kept showing me was baseball. He was playing baseball. And when I was speaking to his father about this, and his father's still here on the earth realm, telling him, yeah, he keeps showing me baseball. He's playing baseball. And he's like, he never played baseball here. And I was like, it's because he couldn't. And he was like, yeah, but he never showed much of an interest in baseball either. I'm like, because he was a little jealous of the players. Like, he wanted to be able to play that and he couldn't. So once he got to the other side, baseball became an obsession with him, but he still had all of the other qualities that people knew him for while he was here on earth. So he was still very social. He was still kind of the life of the party, silly, but also a very good listener. He loved going for long rides by the countryside, and that was something that he showed me as far as what he did in heaven. He showed me this very interesting vehicle in which him and his friends from the other side would go into, and they would actually drive around. So in heaven, there are beautiful landscapes there, and you can walk through them. And apparently you can drive through them too. So that was something that Ryan loved to do here on earth. He loved to explore, he loved to travel, and that was something he continued to do when he was on the other side. The next story that I want to share with you is of a special young man who died of a devastating disease when he was very young. When he crossed over, he decided that he wanted to still go to school. And Andrew was someone who was very studious. He loved learning about the intricacies of life. He loved learning about the intricacies of mechanics and language and everything. He's this very smart kid. And when he crossed over, he showed me that he was in a school of masters, is what he called it. And they were all wearing white, including himself. And these were people, these were teachers that had really taken an interest in him and were showing him all the different dynamics and secrets of not just our realm, but different realms, basically secrets of the universe. So he was going through a school of mysticism, I guess you could call it, on the other side, or school of mysteries. And it is a school where when you graduate, you don't really graduate, you just continually flow into the next levels. So it's not like second grade ends and then you're in third grade and then you're in fourth grade. It's just this continual momentum, like there's no grades. And you don't really go into new classes, but what happens is your vibration lifts. Your energy shifts and the vibration lifts, and you just keep moving forward and you keep kind of going higher on the scale of the information that you're learning. Now, what Andrew plans to do with this information, I don't know. I don't know if he's chosen to be a lifelong student over there, or if he's going, if his role is to become a master teacher. I have a strong suspicion that he'll probably want to come back at some point and be a guide of some sort, of be that type of person who puts on a human body and helps lead some type of a, I want to say a revolution or a renaissance, kind of like Jesus did, come into a human body and show people the right way to go. So at some point, I imagine that's what Andrew will do when things get a little too chaotic here, centuries from now. But it was fascinating to me to see that type of school exists on the other side. And what's also interesting is it doesn't seem as if it's available to just anybody, but there are schools that are available for a wider range of people. But this particular school seems to be, I want to say, prestigious, and that you have to be handpicked and invited for that school. And again, there are other schools, because I have seen with other spirits, they've gone to school for different things, like if they want to be a specific type of guide, or if they want to be an ancestral guide for their bloodline, there is a sort of training that they go through. So yeah, this was very interesting to see. The next story that I want to share with you is actually of someone who is very famous on this earth, and I won't give the name for privacy reasons. I don't think she would appreciate that very much. So I want to continue to honor spirit and share their stories, but keep their privacy, because that's what I feel like that's ethical, is what I'm trying to say. So this woman, when she lived on this realm, she was very famous. She was, I don't know if you'd say the jack of all trades, but she did a lot: modeling, comedy, acting, singing. She's someone who could really do it all. She was a phenomenal person. But what people didn't see behind the scenes was how stressed out she was basically all the time. She smoked. She didn't take the best care of her body. I think she became vegetarian or vegan towards the end, but prior to that, she was eating some just really unhealthy things and had a very unhealthy lifestyle. And her family, her friends, and her doctors were always telling her, you have to eat healthier. You have to take better care of your body. Well, what's interesting is in heaven, it appears that everything is healthy there anyway. So if you had a massive sweet tooth here on earth, you can still have that massive sweet tooth in heaven. And you can eat ice cream and chocolate and candy and pizza to your heart's content without any worries whatsoever, because all of the food there is of a vibration that is going to be conducive to your body that you have there. There is no unhealthy foods there. Gosh, heaven sounds amazing already, right? So there are no unhealthy foods there. Everything there is going to be good for your body. Everything there is going to be good for your energy. What's fascinating, though, is that she showed me that when she got to heaven and she had her reunion party, because she did have a party there, when things start to slow down, she realized that she had moved very quickly here on earth, and it was something that had not exactly traumatized her, but she realized that maybe she wasn't living her best life, although she convinced herself that she did. So when she got to heaven and she started pondering her life and she went through her life review, she decided that she was going to take things very slowly in heaven. And so what was interesting was she was showing me orchards, she was showing me gardens. She had completely flipped her lifestyle around, which was interesting because she really didn't have to. She could have continued to eat all those foods that she loved, but there was something about this that felt significant to her in changing the way that she ate in heaven. And so she was, growing her own apples and her own oranges and her own fruit, her own vegetables. And she was showing me actually almost this community garden where other people were planting different foods, fruits, and vegetables in this garden. And so they would all grow this food together. They would go out together for harvest. They would cook together. And so she still had this very healthy community. And I would say she even made herself a star there. So she was a celebrity here on earth. She's a celebrity there in heaven. but for a different reason, because it turned out that she actually loves agriculture, and she just never knew that because she never took the time to do that here. So she's essentially, or was essentially, learning a new skill, taking up a new hobby that she absolutely loved. And when other people started crossing over who also enjoyed agriculture and were farmers or whatnot, they basically found her, and they have like this community there now, and that's part of what they do. Yeah, so so she made all these wonderful life changes. She learned how to slow things down, and instead of being that highly stressed out type A personality who was not taking care of herself and not taking care of her body, now she's in a position where she can rest and she can enjoy the company of other people and simply be herself. Now, the next story that I want to share with you is of a wonderful woman with a beautiful heart. And I don't remember this spirit's name. But when she was alive, she had a deep fondness for children. She also had a disability, and she was sick quite often. When she gave birth to her own children, she almost died twice, and she even wanted to go for a third one, and her husband and her doctors had to put their foot down and say, if you do that, you can and you probably will die. So even though she desperately wanted more children, she stopped at just 2. So this was something that did bring her great grief in life, because she always wanted to be a mom. And while she loved her 2 kids dearly, she always felt like she was meant to have more. So when this beautiful woman crossed over, I had the pleasure of meeting her daughter, who is of course here on this physical realm, and she's also a lovely person. And as her and I were talking, her mom started to come through. And her mom shared with me, or rather shared with her daughter, that she was doing great in heaven, and she had taken on the role of a sort of counselor who, once children cross over, and children, from what I understand, can be a little more confused about crossing over than adults are, and children can have a difficult time adjusting to the other side, depending on so many factors, depending on how they crossed over, and you know, there's again a lot of factors. They do have a hard time adjusting, and they can miss their parents very much. Most of the time, actually I would say all of the time, there are other family members in the ancestral line that are there to greet the children, but kids are attached to their parents. So when they do cross over, even though they're swept up in love and light, there is a part of them that sometimes misses their family, which is understandable. And we see adult spirits go through this too, but it does seem to be harder for the kids. So back to this woman. She had taken on the role of a counselor who helps children to adjust to the other side. So when children cross over, she is kind of there to oversee the whole thing. And she just kind of watches to see how these children are going to adjust when they make that transition. And if they're having a difficult time, she's able to help them. And one of the things that she also showed me is this wonderful schoolyard. I don't think there was an actual school there, but maybe there was, but it looked like a schoolyard where all these kids were playing. So she was helping them to find their joy, to reignite that playfulness and that curiosity and all those wonderful attributes that children have. She encourage them to go play with each other, to go play on the playground. So if I understand correctly, what she was doing was she was introducing, I guess you could say, human elements that they would be familiar with onto heaven, so that they could adjust easier. Yeah. It's a little confusing. I know it's confusing to me sometimes too. So that was one of the roles she took on. But the other thing that she showed is that there is a children's hospital here on earth that she assists with while she's in spirit form. So when these young children are in the hospital and they're scared and they're lonely and they're confused, she's basically one of the angels that helps to bring them peace. And she was talking about how she whispers stories into their ears, or she whispers, I guess you could say, just words of comfort in any way that she can. So she's really doing her best to comfort these kids. And she also works with the parents of these kids. So one of the things she was showing me is that one of the children in bed couldn't speak because of the things going on in her, well, basically there were tubes in her throat, so she couldn't speak. And she really wanted her mom to read a specific book to her, but since she couldn't speak this out loud, she couldn't get the message across. And so what the lady in spirit did was she went over to the mom and she encouraged the mom. She spoke in her ear like, hey, read this, your daughter wants to hear this story, read this story, go home, get this book and read this to your kid. And so that's what the mom ended up doing. Now, of course, I can't validate this story because I don't know the name of the child. I don't know the name of the mom. I don't even know what hospital this was at. But it was just so comforting to this woman's daughter who was still here, right? So we've got we'll call her the nurse. So the nurse or the children counselor on the other side was bringing forth this message through me to her daughter. And it was just such a beautiful and moving experience even for me because I was able to see what she was doing. I felt the emotions that were associated with it. And it was very moving. And so when her daughter was hearing all of this, she was just so moved by it. And that's when she started telling me, my mom always wanted more kids and she wanted to work with children. She loved them dearly, but because of her disability and her illness, she couldn't. So it brought her so much joy to know that her mom was fulfilling that need and that desire on the other side. So the last story that I have for you is actually of my own Aunt Terry. So my Aunt Terry and I were not very close because of some other things that had happened within my family, which I won't get into, but she was always someone that I admired. I just thought my Aunt Terry was so beautiful. She was funny. She had this infectious laughter. She had a contagious smile. I remember that she had long, beautiful hair. She had like perfect lips. She had these just perfectly shaped lips and she was, I always remember her having worn red lipstick. Maybe she didn't, but that's how I remember her. And she loved trashy novels and she had a snake. Like she was just this very interesting, carefree person, and I loved her so much. And her and I had actually a lot in common. Like we both liked to read. We had similar sense of humors. We kind of looked alike actually. And so she was someone that I greatly admired when I was a kid and a teenager. So my Aunt Terry actually passed away quite a few years ago now. I think it's been about 5 years. And shortly after she passed, she did start showing up for me in meditations and in dreams. And I don't think I knew how to feel about it. There was a big part of me that thought it was just in my head, so I was I was dismissing the dreams and the visitations. The way I was rationalizing the dismissal was that I just missed her so much and I had some guilt because I wasn't able to spend time with her. I told myself I wasn't able to. I probably could have, but anyways, that said, there was guilt associated with her passing. And then there was also a lot of family drama that was taking place around her passing. So it was a rough time for a lot of people and rough time for me. So a couple years ago when I was meditating, she came through in the meditation very, very clearly. And she basically took me on this journey with her and showed me what she was doing in heaven. She was showing me nightclubs, like she was dancing there, she was drinking, she was showing me all these friends that she had met there. So if you wonder if you make new friends in heaven, the answer is yes. If you're an extrovert and you want to meet new people, you absolutely can. If you're an introvert and you're kind of a homebody, you can do that too. If you're someone who just likes to stay in your own tight-knit thing, there are so many similarities between heaven and here, guys. It's unbelievable. But whatever you're comfortable with is what you can do. So if you want to meet new people, you can meet new people. And she was very clearly meeting new people. And so she showed me her going to a nightclub. She was dancing. She was having so much fun. And I remember just watching this going, oh my gosh. Like, there's nightclubs in heaven? There's nightclubs on the other side? Really? But it makes sense, right? Because as above, so below. Heaven had it before we even did. So, anyways, at the end of the night, because in this meditation, when she was showing me the afterlife, there was a night she, took me to her home, which is beautiful, and she just kind of like, she slouched into her recliner, she took off her shoes, she looked at me with a big smile on her face, and what I heard her say, because they're telepathic, the way of communicating with spirits, so interesting. And so she just looked at me and had this big smile on her face, like, what next? Like, what do you want to do now? And it's like, you were just dancing and drinking and meeting all these people, and I'm here exhausted. This is just a meditation. I didn't actually really go anywhere, but I'm exhausted. And she's just like, what are we doing next? Like, just this amazing ball of energy, which is pretty much how I remember her. So it was really interesting for me to see that type of environment exists too, where there's like a party. If that's what you want to do in heaven, you can go to these party environments, you can go to nightclubs, you can dance, you can drink, you can meet other people, and it's going to be perfectly safe. The other thing that she showed me more recently, and if I get emotional, please forgive me, because it was an emotional experience, was, all right, so a few days ago, it might have been a few weeks ago, kind of lost track, I was meditating, and I wasn't trying to connect with my family and spirit. I was trying to de-stress. I was trying to relax. And I somehow just got into the right vibration, into the right zone, where my family members did start showing up. And of course, she was one of them, because she always shows up for me. And I just love her so much. And I love that her and I have this really cool relationship now. But so she showed up, and other family members were there too, but she was the one that was the most talkative, and she's just the one that I'm always actually going to be more drawn to anyway. And all of a sudden, we were sitting at the kitchen table in my grandma's house. Now, I don't have good memories in my grandma's house, but she does. And so for her, that's where she grew up. That's where she remembers there being happy memories of Christmas and Thanksgiving and just wonderful family gatherings. And the joy that she had at family gatherings, that experience was not usually my experience there. So it was really weird for me to be at my grandma's house. And her and I were sitting and we were talking, and she was asking things like, so what's new in your life? Like, what have you been up to? I kind of gave her this look. I'm like, I know that you know what I've been up to. And she's like, yeah, but I want to hear it from you anyway. So I was like, all right. So anyways, her and I are sitting at the kitchen table talking. And one of the things about my grandma's house is that whenever I went there, it was always for holidays or birthdays. Very rarely was it for just a visit. So it was always a full house. And with that, there was always lots of food on the table, lots of snacks and appetizers. One of them being my grandpa's salsa. Oh my God, he made the hottest salsa. It would burn my mouth, and I would always be drinking water afterwards, like, And then guacamole, because I mean, we're Mexican, so you gotta have guacamole, chips, and salsa, right? It's what we do, especially in California. You gotta have your guacamole. So we were sitting there at the table, and we're talking, and without even thinking about it, I grabbed a chip, dipped it in the guacamole, and then dipped it in the salsa like I used to do, and popped it in my mouth. And I just completely froze when I realized what I had done and what had just happened, because I could feel the chip in my hand. I could feel the table. It was all very real. And I could taste the chip. I could taste the guacamole. I could taste the salsa. And there was something about that feel and the flavor that triggered me. Not in a good way. And there was just like this heavy flow of emotions that came up. And it was like all this trauma that I experienced as a kid in that environment came up. It wasn't fun. And my Aunt Terry was very sweet, and she put her arms around me, and I cried. And I was crying in real life though too. So I was sitting there like, it's a good thing I meditate when no one else is around, because I'm sitting there, eyes closed, and tears are streaming down my face, but I'm also crying in the meditation. So it was just like this cleansing that was happening on a physical and spiritual level. And she was, of course, just being very comforting, telling me she loves me and I'm okay. And she's right, I am okay. Like things are great in my life, but tasting food from my childhood, recognizing that I felt a chip, that I ate guacamole, that I had this salsa, I don't even know how to explain it. But it was interesting because I don't feel like that was heaven exactly. It feels like it was almost like this corner, this other realm, this layer, I guess you could say, between the realms where we both met. And I don't know if she reconstructed the house, my grandma's house, in the kitchen, or if I did that, or if we both did that. I mean, I know it wasn't heaven, because when I've reached out to the other side before, there's this very specific feel that spirits from heaven have, but also that heaven itself has. So I know the difference when I'm there. So this was just really different, and I feel like this was meant to be part of my healing, and it was also just, I don't know how to explain it, but anyways, so my Aunt Terry, I know very much that she is one of my guides. In fact, a few years ago, when I was getting ready to make a pretty big, significant life choice, she just kind of flew in from the spirit world, was like, no, don't do this. It's a mistake. Like, she was pleading with me not to make this choice. And I made that choice anyway. And it led to some pretty disastrous events, I must say. And she was right. She tried to warn me. So I know very much that my Aunt Terry is one of my guides. I know that she's one of the spirits that watches over me, that visits me, that helps me in my mediumship, that helps me with my healing. And I love her, and I love her very much. So that said, what's interesting about her is she's totally living her own life in heaven. Like, she has her friends there, her friends that have crossed over, but then she has new friends that she met, and she's still doing all of the things that she loves and without the consequences. And that's kind of what heaven does. And the thing is too, is like, when I talk about she's drinking over there, I don't know if she's really drinking alcohol. I mean, it looked like alcohol to me, and she did love her margaritas, and she didn't love margaritas because she liked to get wasted from them. She liked the flavor, which I'm kind of the same way. I love margaritas. So I mean, I don't know if heaven has that type of substance where it gives you that type of, I would imagine not, because you wouldn't need, anyways, I'm starting to ramble, aren't I? So, anyways, it's fascinating to me to know that she's living this amazing life, and she's doing her own thing, and she's so happy on the other side, but she's still visiting me, and I'm sure she's still visiting other people here too. So if you've ever wondered what your loved ones do on the other side, they are doing the things that they've always loved, or they are doing the things that would have been good for them that they couldn't do for whatever reason. And like we saw in 2 of these stories where there were disabilities, if there was something that they wanted to do so badly and they couldn't because of what was happening in their bodies, on the other side, they are doing those things and they are enjoying the heaven out of it. And at the same time, they're still watching over you. They're still visiting you. They're still keeping an eye on you because you're still precious to them. They still love you so, so, so much. So even if you can't hear them, even if you can't feel them or see them, just know that they're still watching over you. And life didn't stop for them. Life didn't stop for them. When they crossed over, life continued. It changed, but it continued. They don't want life to stop for you either. And you don't have to wait until you get to heaven to live the life that you truly love. When I speak to these spirits who are in heaven, some of them do have some grief that they had to work through. Some of them look back at their life and they're like, I should have done that differently. I could have made a better impact on my own life and the lives of others. And, there's that acknowledgement, there's that recognition. And some of them do have to go through what I would say is a healing process before they can let that go. And they can allow that review to be knowledge that will serve them in the next life, as opposed to it being a hindrance while they are experiencing this new life. So, yeah. So when people get to heaven, they are doing the things that they love to do. They are doing the things that they should have done. They are doing the things that would have brought them joy and can bring them joy now. And this is just but 5 examples of the different stories that I've heard from people on the other side. And so with that, I still hope that it brought you some type of insight, that it gave you some hope that life doesn't stop here, it continues. And the experiences that we have even in heaven are so intimately human. They're still based on connections with other people. The experiences are still profound and are still the things that brought joy to our hearts and pleasure to our bodies. There are a lot of wonderful things that happen there. And because I know I'm going to get this question, I'm going to answer it. A few of you have asked me, can romantic relationships blossom in heaven? Yes, they can. So a lot of times, though, what I do see is that when husbands and wives cross over here, if they had an intimately beautiful, loving relationship here, they keep that on the other side. They keep it because they still love each other on the other side too. But if someone crossed over who is single, they're most likely going to find their soulmate when they get to heaven. They're going to find that person that they couldn't find here, or that they weren't healthy enough for, or whatever it is. Those people unite in heaven. So yes, romantic relationships take place because community, people, connection, that'll always be important no matter what realm we're in. Because again, we are intimately and beautifully human, and we are intimately and beautiful spirit, and spirit is all connected. It's why our angels and guides and divine spirits love us so much and connect with us so much, because we're all about connection. It'll always be that way. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section down below. And if this is your first time watching one of my videos, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here on this channel, we love to talk about things like the afterlife, ghost spirits, angels, intuition, things like that. If that's up your alley, I have a feeling it is, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell icon so you can be notified when I release new videos in the future. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.